Ever been stuck waiting for like a package? One that feels like it's just lost at sea.
Oh,
Maybe it was a birthday gift, or in my case, it was a replacement coffee grinder.
mm-hmm.
Those beans, they weren't going to grind themselves, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Turns out these delays in the shipping world, they can come with a hefty price tag.
Yeah.
We're talking about demurrage and detention fees.
Yeah.
And today we're diving into this fascinating legal battle. All about these fees. It involves international shipping giants and the Philippine government.
Okay.
And it's centered around how these costs are taxed. We've got a stack of legal decisions and tax regulations to untangle.
Okay.
But don't worry, I've got my life vest ready to navigate these choppy waters.
And I'll be your compass. I'll help you chart a course through all this complexity.
I like it. So before we set sail, let's define those fees. Demurrage and detention. What are we even talking about here?
So imagine a cargo ship docked at a port. Demurrage is essentially a late fee.
Okay.
It's charged by the shipping company if you, the importer, don't unload your cargo from their container within a certain time frame.
Makes sense.
Detention is a similar fee, but it kicks in when you're holding on to the shipping container itself for too long, even after it's been unloaded from the ship.
So it's all about keeping those goods moving. But why the Philippines? What makes their tax system so central to this case?
Well, the Philippines, like many countries, offers this, preferential tax rate to international shipping companies.
Yeah.
It's all about attracting business and keeping those cargo ships coming. This special rate applies to what's known as Gross Philippine Billings.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's the income shipping companies earn from transporting goods that originated in the Philippines.
Okay, so lower taxes to keep that global trade flowing. But this is where things get tricky, right?
Yeah.
We're not just talking about one country's tax code. We're in the realm of international agreements and treaties.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And that adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Right.
The Philippines, like most countries, has tax treaties with other nations to avoid double taxation.
Right.
That's a situation where a company gets hit with taxes from two different countries on the same income.
Right.
It's about finding a balance, a country's right to collect taxes versus the need to facilitate international trade.
A delicate dance, for sure. So these shipping companies are operating within this system of preferential rates, international agreements. How did those demurrage and detention fees throw a wrench into the works?
Well, imagine you're this global shipping company.
Okay.
You're operating in the Philippines.
Yeah.
You're enjoying that preferential tax rate.
Yeah.
Everything seems smooth sailing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, bam, a lawsuit hits in 2012.
A maritime mutiny over taxes.
Yeah.
Who fired the first shot?
A group of major shipping lines.
Okay.
They decided to challenge how the Philippines was taxing those demurrage and detention fees,
Okay.
the ones we talked about.
Right.
Remember, those charges can add up,
Yeah.
especially for these big international companies.
So they're thinking we're already getting a special tax rate.
Ex-
These fees shouldn't be added to the pile.
Right.
What's their main argument?
They argued that as international carriers benefiting from that preferential rate,
Right.
they shouldn't be subject to the regular income tax on these fees.
Okay.
The fees, they claimed, were merely incidental to their main business of shipping goods.
Incidental.
Yeah,
That almost sounds like they're trying to say these fees are just a minor side hustle.
right. But that's where the language of the law really comes into play.
Okay.
Incidental in this context.
Yeah.
Means the court didn't see these fees as a distinct business activity,
Okay.
separate from their core shipping operations.
Okay, so round one goes to the shipping companies.
Yeah, it seems that way.
This is a podcast about deep dives, though.
Okay.
And I have a sinking suspicion this isn't where the story ends.
You'd be right to be suspicious.
Okay.
The court's decision was final and executory,
Okay.
which in legal terms
Yeah.
means it couldn't be directly appealed.
Right.
Think of it like a referee's final call in a game.
Okay.
It's decisive, but it doesn't mean the rulebook can't be rewritten for the next match.
A crucial distinction.
Yes.
So how did the rule book change in this case?
Enter the Philippine government in 2013,
Okay.
just a year later, with a brand new law
Wow.
designed to, as they put it, rationalize taxes on international shipping.
Okay.
This new law, known as RA 10378,
Okay.
specifically targeted the section of the tax code dealing with international carriers.
Okay, so they saw the loophole and decided to close it.
It seems that way.
I'm guessing this is where things get really interesting for those shipping companies.
Yeah.
Did this new law explicitly mention demurrage and detention fees?
That's the million-dollar question.
Okay.
While the law aimed to streamline things,
Yeah.
it didn't directly address those specific fees.
Okay.
leaving some wiggle room for interpretation.
So the battle wasn't over, just entering a new phase.
Exactly.
What happened next? Did the shipping companies just sail away into the sunset with those fees tucked safely in their coffers?
Not so fast.
Okay.
Remember, laws are often broad strokes,
Right.
and the details come in with the implementation.
Right.
That's where the Secretary of Finance stepped onto the deck.
A new player enters the game. What did the Secretary of Finance bring to the table? All right, so the Secretary of Finance enters the picture. What did they do to, clarify this new law? Did they throw the shipping companies a life raft, or was it a cannonball across the bow?
More like a carefully aimed shot.
Okay.
The Secretary of Finance issued what's known as a revenue regulation,
Okay.
specifically RR 15/2013.
Okay.
This regulation clarified that any income earned by international carriers,
Right.
beyond the specifically defined Gross Philippine Billings,
Yeah.
would be subject to that regular income tax rate.
And I bet those demurrage and detention fees weren't part of those specifically defined billings.
You got it.
Up
It
to
was a
date.
clever move by the government,
Yeah.
effectively capturing those fees in the tax net
Yep.
without directly mentioning them in the law itself.
That's quite a power play. Knowing these shipping companies, I doubt they took this lying down.
You're right.
Okay.
They weren't about to surrender those profits without a fight.
Yeah.
Round 2 of this legal battle began.
Okay.
And this time they brought out the big guns.
Okay.
The legal equivalent of, wait, haven't we already been over this?
So are we talking about an appeal or something else entirely?
They actually tried to use a legal doctrine
Okay.
called res judicata.
Okay.
It's a principle that prevents the same issue from being litigated again
Right.
once it's been decided by a court.
Right.
It's like saying, we already had this trial and we won.
Makes sense. So did the courts just throw out the case?
Not so fast.
Okay.
Remember that change in the rule book we discussed?
Right.
Right.
The Philippine government argued that because the Secretary of Finance, with their new regulations,
Right.
wasn't a party to that original 2012 case,
Right.
res judicata didn't apply.
So a whole new ball game with this new regulation.
Yeah.
But if the shipping companies lost that argument, did they have any other legal anchors to throw overboard?
They did come up with another clever tactic.
Okay.
They argued that demurrage and detention fees
Yeah.
weren't truly income at all,
Okay.
but rather like penalties designed to discourage delays.
Okay.
The idea was to reframe those fees as something other than earnings.
A bold strategy. Did it work?
The court ultimately didn't buy it.
Okay.
They dug deep into the legal and financial definition of gross income for businesses and found that regardless of what you call them.
Those fees were very much a part of the shipping company's revenue stream.
So round 2, and ultimately the case, goes to the Philippine government.
That's right.
Talk about a roller coaster ride through the legal seas.
It really is.
What's the biggest takeaway from all of this for you?
For me, it's the significance of the court upholding the Secretary of Finance's interpretation of the law.
Okay.
Because that 2013 revenue regulation was deemed interpretative,
Yeah.
clarifying existing rules rather than creating new ones.
Right.
It didn't require a more formal legislative process
Right.
that gives the government quite a bit of leeway in how it applies tax law.
Flexibility for governments, perhaps a touch of uncertainty for international businesses.
Definitely.
This deep dive really highlighted how those hidden costs we see in the shipping world can lead to some fascinating legal battles.
Absolutely. And while the Philippine government won this round,
Yeah.
this case sparks a much larger debate about these fees.
Right.
Are they truly just penalties for delays?
Yeah.
Or are they a way for shipping companies to generate extra revenue?
Right.
And if these costs are passed down to consumers,
Right.
should governments be stepping in to regulate them?
Plenty to ponder there. And it just goes to show sometimes the most captivating journeys are those that delve into the depths of the rules and regulations that govern our world.
I agree.
This has been quite an eye-opening deep dive.
Yeah.